Planter Works, which was in Moline, Illinois at the time. And I really think these statistics are really cool. We had electric lights installed 10 years before they were ever installed in the White House in Washington, D.C. We actually had fabric filters for the industrial stacks that are emitting all the emissions in 1925. We had Mississippi River pollution controls in 1950, 10 years before the Illinois State Sanitary Water Board had them in effect. And also in 1967, I believe this is a huge thing, our company had their first environmental policy. So we were thinking about environmental and sustainability a long time ago. So it really is about our heritage. Oops, a little fast on the, uh-oh. Yeah. Back. Yep, back. No, other way. Go towards the front, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Right, okay. Sorry about that. I've got a quick trigger finger. So we really are committed to those that are linked to the land. It all begins with our purpose, our aspirations, and our strategies. We are committed to supporting our customers who are supporting those that are providing food, infrastructure globally. So we have to be committed to that as well. So a couple of examples of our farm equipment. Now John Deere, we do manufacture construction and forestry equipment, but our ag equipment is a huge portion of our business. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of some sustainability initiatives and some of the equipment we have to offer. So we've seen some common high-level drivers across different farm types. These are efficient utilization of labor, timeliness of operation, and efficient utilization of inputs. So when you have all of these together, it really helps enable sustainable production systems. A couple of examples of our equipment and technology. Conservation is very important in agriculture. So we've got conservation tillage. We've got low draft, low disturbance equipment that's minimizing the impact to the soil. An interesting one that I like to talk about is that we have CropSense soil moisture monitoring technology. This is really, really neat because it allows farmers who might be in water scarce areas to monitor their water withdrawals from the aquifers and also monitor the moisture of the soil. So we have all of these technologies in place that are helping our sustainability initiatives, including pushing these out to our supply chain and our customers. This is an interesting slide as well. Expanding our sustainability and productivity through smallholder mechanization. So can you imagine going from an ox-driven process for farming into a mechanized piece of equipment to help them improve their crop yields, improve their productivity, improve their efficient utilization of labor? These are all ways that we are helping our customers. This is a big deal, water management, and it is going to be a big deal in years to come. 70% of the world's freshwater withdrawals are used by agriculture today. That's a huge statistic. This is the one that scares me. By 2025, over 1.8 billion people will live in areas with absolute water scarcity. That's a scary statistic to think about. So we have new irrigation technologies that can help our farmers and our customers reduce water use by 30 to 60% on surface irrigation. We do have a John Deere water division. We acquired a company in 2006. Our vision is very clear. We want to be the leaders in water industry. However, we want to be efficient in water management solutions and also enable stewardship of our water resources. So it's very clear we have a mission to, again, work with our customers, work with our farmers to enable those sustainability operations. So in summary, on the few slides that you saw on our products, I think you see how important our products play in sustainability and helping our farm base and helping the population that it continues to grow. Our business continues to grow. So it's very important that our products not only are technology sound, but are very efficient and offer sustainability at the same time. So John Deere's definition of environmental sustainability is very clear. To fulfill our commitment to those linked to the land, we will efficiently, you're going to hear that word a lot in my slides, efficiently use natural resources in our operations and our products as we continue to grow our business, because trust me, we are growing as a business globally. And something I do want to point out, as my slides are going to be focused on supply chain, this piece on the operations and the products, that really does apply and tie into our supply chain, okay? Suppliers are a huge part of our business and how we manufacture our products. So this strategy also applies to our business with our supply chain. So this is our sustainability framework. We have 4 pillars. We have an operational footprint that consists of suppliers and facilities. We also have a customer footprint. I talked a little bit about our products and a little bit about our solutions. But today, I really do want to focus on the supplier portion of our framework. Our worldwide supply management and logistics strategy makes it very clear that we will deploy and manage sustainability strategies throughout the value chain. Our company, John Deere, talks about the how we do business, how we relate to our customers, how we relate to one another in the workplace. It's very key that we keep this in mind when we're working and moving forward in our sustainability strategies. This is what we call our football. Internally to John Deere, we call this our football, but this is our sustainability strategy. It contains 5 different layers, 5 different sections, and today, I wish I could talk about these all day today because I'm very passionate about this topic, but for time, I really do want to focus on 3 things: regulatory compliance, supplier compliance, and environmental sustainability. We strongly feel as a company that in order for us to promote sustainability within our company and to promote sustainability to our supply chain, we have to have compliance first. And I'll show you how that really ties into our strategy. So let's start with regulatory compliance. I'm going to talk about a subject called conflict minerals, which some of you in industry probably are very aware of this topic. It's a devastating conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. They're saying that it's the deadliest since World War II. It involves extreme sexual and gender-based violence against people that are working in these mines. Basically, the revenues from the mining of the minerals are seen as the key drivers for this conflict. Why am I talking about conflict minerals? Because it does apply to companies like John Deere who report to the Securities and Exchange Commission. So we must require disclosure that these products, gold, tin, tantalum, and tungsten, are not being used in our equipment or are not from the Democratic Republic of Congo. So you can see in this picture that you think of these minerals, and typically you think of cell phones, computers, laptops, things of that nature. But let me show you how it affects John Deere. Take a great example of our tractor. All the commodities that are affected by tin. Tin is a great corrosion inhibitor. So it's used in things like wiring, glass, seat cushions, batteries, brake pads, electronics, bearings, radiator. A lot of commodities for this one piece of equipment. Tungsten and gold. Look at this combine. It's amazing how tungsten and gold are integrated into products such as electronics and integrated circuits, gear teeth, bearings, onboard electronics. Gold also is used because it has a high resistance to corrosion. So that's why these are used in equipment like this. Another example of tantalum. It's used in our cabs, in our safety features, applications, in the body. So we as a company have to make sure that we are sourcing, making wise sourcing decisions, and we have to disclose that our suppliers who are providing this with these materials are not coming from the Democratic Republic of Congo where the conflict minerals issue is taking place. We're a highly regulated business as well, so that's why we feel compliance is very important and key. So now let's take a quick look at supplier compliance. 2 things I want to talk about. Hotline SEC. You're thinking, hotline, what is that? SEC? Well, SEC is our supplier code of conduct. And we have a hotline that's in place. Let me tell you quickly, though, about our code of conduct. It is now available in 19 languages, and our suppliers are expected to comply with everything that's in this code of conduct. We have 4 main sections. We have labor and human rights, which I talked just a little bit about on conflict minerals. We have health and safety, very important in our manufacturing business. Environment, and it talks about sustainability in this section as well. And then ethics. So 4 key sections of our code of conduct. Our suppliers are expected to comply with all of these. What is our John Deere Compliance Hotline? Why am I talking about it today? We have to have oversight of our supply chain. We have to manage our supply chain, and we want to know what's going on in our supply chain. So we have this compliance hotline that's available to our John Deere employees internally, but also to our suppliers. It's toll-free. It's available 24 hours a day. And typically, it's used to communicate confidential anonymous reporting of potential unethical or improper actions. And I will tell you that we have had environmental incidents reported from our supply chain as well. Let me show you a little graph of some of the compliance reporting we've seen. So it is global. You can see USA and China are our 2 biggest hitters that come in for the compliance calls. And you're probably wondering, why is there such a gap? You know, it jumps from 2008 to 2009. Well, I'll tell you why. Our leadership decided that we weren't communicating enough to our employees and to our supply chain to let them know that we have this compliance tool in place. And so we developed and implemented a compliance strategy. We also did training. We rolled all of this out. And you can see communicating is very key, because after we communicated this in 2009, a lot of people really started using this system. So another way that we oversee our suppliers, and is a very key part of our business, we have supplier audits that are conducted by John Deere. Now these are 18 different audits that we go out and conduct on our supply chain. They involve anything from quality audits to order fulfillment audits to special process audits for painting, plating, but we also have an environmental audit that we have for suppliers who we consider high environmental risk. And I'll give you an explanation of this. So we have 4 environmental risk categories. Category 1 and 2 are considered on the lower risk spectrum. Category 1 really are suppliers that are providing purchased goods, products, and materials to us. John Deere doesn't really have design control. And Category 2 is very similar to that, except we may have some design control. So potentially the paints, the bulk paints that we're ordering from our preferred suppliers, such as Valspar and PPG, these are considered Category 2. These are what we consider high risk, and it's very important that we monitor these suppliers for environmental reasons. So these are suppliers that we are outsourcing work to, that are providing some type of value-add work on John Deere parts. It could be painting our parts, plating, chemical coating, and if you think about it, the reason why this is such a risk to us, because it's our parts that we're sending out to have this type of activity performed on. So there is a risk that there are environmental implications down the production area on this. So we do require that an environmental audit is conducted. And Category 4, these are our suppliers that are actually taking John Deere waste, transferring, treating, disposing. So again, very high risk to the company. We have to make sure that we are managing the suppliers and their activities to make sure they are doing things right environmentally. So you can see I started with the regulatory aspect of it, the compliance aspect, because again, we feel very strongly that if we don't have those in place, then we really cannot promote sustainability, either within John Deere at our factories or the products we make, or promote it to our supply chain. So compliance is first, and then environmental sustainability. So what I want to focus on, and actually you brought up a very, very key point earlier about cost reduction and about how we can tie sustainability issues into cost reduction in our supply chain. And I have a great example of how we do that. So I'm going to talk about something called JD Crop. JD Crop is called John Deere Cost Reduction Opportunities Process. And basically it fits into this program called Achieving Excellence. Achieving Excellence is a program that John Deere has for our supply chain, And the main objective is really to drive continuous improvement. It's to nurture and continue to build relationships with our suppliers, because it's really not only beneficial to our supply chain, but it's very beneficial to John Deere. The main principles are very clear. We're focused on getting our suppliers involved. They must be committed. There must be trust, cooperation, and obviously teamwork is a key part of this. So the wavelength is a little bit about building relationships, and then the cost management piece is about that JD crop activity and process that I talked about. So let me show you just an example of what we've done for our sustainability and environmental. In 2012, we introduced 4 environmental categories into this Achieving Excellence program. We introduced energy, water, wastewater, waste disposal, and recycling. 4 key areas that we feel very important. So our suppliers have an opportunity to submit projects in these 4 categories that do 2 things. That give them a credit towards this Achieving Excellence program for participating, but also to help in cost reduction opportunities and improving environmental practices. So we started this on our fiscal year, which is November 1st, 2011, and to date we've had about 150 projects submitted. All very interesting projects, and these are global. We've had projects submitted from Brazil on reusing things like rainwater to use for processed water. So very interesting projects, and we hope that this continues to grow. A little pitch for John Deere. We are still recognized as one of the most admired companies. We are focused again on being committed to those linked to the land. We are focused on building relationships, and we're focused on our sustainability strategies and making sure those are in our global strategies. And it all goes back to being committed to those linked to the land and our heritage. So thank you for your time. And now I will give the mic back to Annabelle.
Thanks, Shelley. You can keep that. We're going to invite the other 2 speakers join you on the stage for a panel discussion. But before that, George.
Yes.
And George had an interesting quote for you. He says, Charlene, though you mow the green, you saw them too.
Agreed. I like that. Very good.
Yeah, so. So next, we're going to take questions from the audience. And you can hear this start. Yeah. There's only 2 of those? We did?
Thanks to all of you for enlightening us on really great topics of sustainability. My name is Vijay, and I have a question for Steve from Veralia. You said that your goal for 2013 for cullet production is 50%. So what's the current status of cullets in your production? And what are you doing to educate the end users in addition to bringing legislative measures to bring sustainable, recyclable products to more than 10 states in the US? So what are the steps you are taking to educate the end users in this role?
Good. Thank you for the question. It's a complex one. As our industry. Oh, do I need to? Oh, very good. In fact, I'm going to stand up because the light is directly in my eye.
Okay.
Our industry about 3 years ago is represented by the Glass Packaging Institute Trade Association, and we looked around along the topics that I was speaking to, and we said, you know what? We should get to 50% recycled content by the end of 2013. We were sitting at about 22%. What does that mean? Recycled content, it simply means that of a bottle or jar, that 22% was in cullet and the rest was sand, soda ash, and limestone. We knew that our customers were starting to demand a focus on sustainability because they were doing their annual reports, and our customers are household names, Anheuser-Busch, Kraft, Constellation, all of those kind of folks. And the way we can deliver credits in their annual reports is to deliver more recycled content so they can deal with carbon footprint issues and stuff like that, because that's a big hit. So we started that process. And what I find, and I have to be careful what I say here, I've been working for European companies for a long time. And one of the criticisms Americans get is that we're not paying very much attention to household recycling, setting aside industrial recycling. And our recovery rates demonstrate that they're right. But what I found, and back to the educational scenarios, that when you do polling, and part of what I do is polling when I'm going into a state to run a campaign to try to increase recycling rates, is that American citizens have bought into the idea of recycling. We don't have to be ashamed that our recycling ethic is wrong or misguided or something like that. Our problem in this country, for the most part, is the lack of infrastructure to manage the recycling. So we are getting, and whether I'm in Washington, D.C. or in a state house, when I talk to legislators about, have you ever followed your recyclables that you or your wife or your child carried out to the curb on Thursday morning in the dark thinking you were recycling? What happened to it? They go bonkers when they understand that 30, 40, 50% of what they're taking, whatever the recycling is, actually ending up at the landfill. So that part of education is not the issue. That being said, and while Tom was working with Ryan and stuff, we put together some local educational scenarios, and I would urge you to go to our website, and you'll find the notorious Captain Cullet and his sidekick Little God, and that takes through the recycling process as it relates to glass, and in all of our plants, 13 locations around the country, we reach out to schools, and our folks go into those schools and talk about it. The kids become very, very focused on that. But the truth of the matter is, and here comes the commercial for Bottle Bill, the greatest, the cheapest, and the most direct education process in this country to improve beverage container recycling, aluminum, PET, and glass, is the nickel that you put down when you buy your soda, your beer, your water, because guess what? As the slides show, about 75 to 85% of the folks bring their recycled material back. When that happens in a bottle bill state, that means that you have a clean and high volume source of recycled materials. So it's not so, we're in favor of education, and I think the Alcoa and KAB program that was announced last week will help with some of that. But what we have to do is we have to move beyond that. We have to deal with whether they're going to sign up the millions and millions of dollars of improving the municipal solid waste stream recycling process, or whether there are easier ways of starting that process. So I hope that answers your question.
Can I make one real quick comment regarding that? I'm a member of the Indiana General Assembly Study Committee on Economic Development, and I would encourage people not to look at sustainability and environmental stewardship as purely an environmental issue. I think it is definitely an economic development issue, and I'd like to see, and we brought it up before the committee, more discussion of attracting companies into the state of Indiana based on Indiana's initiatives and those that can be put in place regarding sustainability.
If I may just put one addition to that, there's one state in particular that I'm familiar with who we're trying to work to increase the recyclability. To the point of economic development, they actually have a crew when they have a prospect coming in that goes to the intersections from their airport to the economic development offices to make sure the litter is cleaned up, because the state has a very bad reputation, and you're exactly right. That is one of the key points, and you hear that from Mayor Ballard and from the State House, that's one of the checkpoints of when you're looking to relocate or locate a new facility in a plant, because everybody wants to embrace the sustainability, and particularly, yeah, it's a quality of life issue, absolutely, and we're all chasing recruiting you guys.
So a question, it appears that in all of your presentations, there wasn't a trade-off. You got sustainability and you got cost reduction. So let's suppose from the outside world, as firms, more firms like yours commit to sustainability and therefore cost reduction, can we anticipate that 3 to 5% cost reduction a year will come from your sustainability initiatives as a matter of course?
I don't think you can assume that as a matter of course, no. I think it has to be done the right way, and certainly all of our presentations talked about within our own companies how that approach was taken. I think that you can work toward achieving that profitability, but there are certain types of projects that are very important to environmental stewardship that may not have the return on investment that would generate the profitability in a short period of time. Give you a very quick instance. We had a project on site to recycle our paint solvent. We were the first automaker to try and do that on site. The return on investment for that was about 10 years. So not a profitable venture to do that. But it was an important thing to do from our environmental stewardship activities. So not all activities are going to generate that profitability right away. You really have to have a system, and that's why I encourage people to have an environmental management system in place to identify the waste streams, to go about it in the proper way.
So,
Sure.
sorry.
No, I would just second that in that all of our I didn't focus a lot on our factories today because I really wanted to focus in on supply chain, but our factories are required to have an environmental management system in place. We've committed to the Climate Leaders Program to reduce greenhouse gases by 25%. So we're making strides, but we're also wanting to be ready to really push this out to our supply chain. So when, for instance, the Scope 3 greenhouse gas emissions and the protocols and the regulations come into effect, we want to be ready, and we want our suppliers to be ready when that happens. So that's why we are starting with programs like I showed you, the John Deere cost reduction opportunities. We really want to get them engaged and show them how important a topic it is for us. And what I'm seeing now is that I feel like strongly it's a very important topic to our suppliers as well. And we've seen some really great projects that are coming in with cost reduction opportunities.
So,
And I'll just put our point. I put a couple slides on there that talked about what our plants are doing, and I would echo the comments here. Many of those projects have a longer-term payback. For the glass industry with cullet, we're right up close and personal. We're after raw material or a substitute for a raw material, so there's an immediate payback month to month, week to week. If we can get more cullet in a week in a plant, the plant's bottom line that week is better than it would be otherwise, and also there are fewer emissions and all the good things we talked about. So we are at times accused of being focused on only reducing our bottom line, and we would say, well, of course, we have shareholders, albeit in Paris, that are important drivers, but they're also European drivers, and we just get beaten unmercifully for the lack of recovery in recyclables in this country, even though we aren't responsible for all of it, obviously.
So I'm going to change in terms of, instead of saying that there's a profit, if your supplier, if they're going to use conflicted material, they will use that as reducing their own cost, because that's how they will see it. So when you are looking at your suppliers and suppliers, how do you make sure that there's a traceability and then you don't end up with a conflicted material?
That's a very good point to bring up because it's a struggle that we're trying to figure out a way that we can do that so that the traceability is there, and so that we're talking about how do we follow up with suppliers to verify. Verification is huge. We can't just rely on our supplier or their tier 2 suppliers to tell us, nope, we don't have any conflict minerals in the products we're supplying. That won't work. So we're actually talking about following up with audit processes so that we actually go in and we're looking to see where these minerals are coming from, where the products are coming from. But I will tell you that it is a struggle.
No, because we want to record it.
Oh.
Thanks. Your name is Ben? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ben Tony. I'm a second-year MBA student. Thank you all for your wonderful presentations. So I have this question is first directed at Mr. Easterday, but all of you can address it. I really believe that at Subaru, part of what has helped them is the foresight that they had when they were building the plant in Indiana to make it so that it could be what it is today. What recommendations do you have for companies that have plants that weren't necessarily built with the same foresight in mind to continue to drive improvements in this area?
I think the key is probably to benchmark. I know benchmarking is kind of a trendy word and a trendy thing, but I think it's very effective. We've had, we like to joke that we've had everything from potato chips to rockets come to our plant. We've had everybody from Frito-Lay to Raytheon come to visit. And I think benchmarking and establishing what you believe is the current best practice is probably the best way for a company that maybe didn't have the initial programs or wasn't created with that in mind. I think so. I would encourage everyone to get as many opportunities as they can to go and see. Activities are very big in Japan, and we fortunately have the opportunity to go to, for example, all the Toyota plants around the world in addition to the Subaru plant. So, but we open up our plant to other automakers if they want to come in. If their environmental stewardship activities, for example, aren't as advanced as ours, we welcome them to come in because we're all working toward a common goal, and that's to improve the environment. It may help their bottom line, but that's fine. That's fine. We appreciate that too. So benchmarking, I think, is the number one thing. Second thing, I think, is to make sure that you work closely with your associates, come up with their ideas, their Kaizen ideas, because things that maybe weren't in the plant to begin with, generally the people that are working there can come up with a lot of creative ideas to make those improvements, those Kaizen activities. And the third thing, of course, your supply chain. A lot of the suppliers have various methods that they have already incorporated that can be incorporated as a best practice for your operations also. Or likewise, you can do a lot of things, take them from your plant and make sure they're incorporated into your supply chain. So I think benchmarking with other companies is key. I think working with your own associates to come up with their Kaizen ideas and to encourage those, incentivize those as much as possible. And third is to work closely with your supply chain.
And I would just like to say one thing about the benchmarking. This is a great example because actually John Deere, our John Deere factories, have benchmarked Subaru, and we loved their sustainability initiatives and the fact that they were going zero landfill. And so a lot of our factories are following what Subaru has already implemented. And so we're following that benchmarking activity as well, which is, again, very key.
Yeah, and it's easy to support what's just been said. Our industry, our company, was doing those kind of things, but not with a sustainability focus until 6-8 years ago. We needed to upgrade our plants. We needed to benchmark, and we did that. When you have a beer bottle plant in Dunkirk, Indiana, that shoots out 700 beer bottles a minute perfectly, 24/7, 365 days a year for 10 years, they're not all perfect, but virtually all of them are. You've got to do that. What drove us to focus on our sustainability and then to get it was the obvious business case that said replace raw materials with recycled materials, recycled glass, doing all the things I talked about. The problem, and it's a separate discussion or at break or something, that our customers and PET customers and aluminum customers had different perspectives about how they wanted to handle their empty beverage containers, which is why in this country you have the billions of containers going into the landfill. That dialogue is robust, to say the least, right now about whether we should continue on that path. We have an obvious viewpoint on that because it drives our business model, but also our sustainability model, and we think our customers are coming to that too. But of course, the customer is always right. And you have to tread a bit lightly at times as to how you try to drive that policy change.
My name is David Tate. I'm with Charlon's advisor here at Purdue. A proud Kranick graduate here, I am. I drove tractors, some of your John Deere tractors growing up in the farm. I've driven Subarus since 1974. And I will consume a fair amount of your product, Mr. Sergarth, following our beating of Michigan this weekend. So here's the question. As a land-grant college here in Indiana at Purdue, what obligation do we owe to these students who come here as we prepare them to go out and respond to your needs, looking at the collaborative efforts we should be doing here, not only within the institution, but within corporations such as yours? What do you see our obligation as being?
Sure, I'll start. I've got a slightly different message than the other two speakers because I'm in the midst of an advocacy campaign across the country. So what you're hearing from me is a public policy message to try to change hearts and minds in a direction. And you do that by building, and whether you like the word or not, you've got to build stakeholder coalitions. And that's not always easy to do. This population, typically a college campus, is ripe for green discussions and getting the idea that it's kind of silly to throw away billions of dollars worth of perfectly good raw materials and pay people to do all of that. So part of my willingness, notwithstanding the long association Varalya has had with Purdue here, is to look to gain a voice and a message point here on this campus should we decide to move forward in Indiana with a campaign to try and do that. I was at the State House on Wednesday, as I think I might have mentioned, testing that concept. I was also here, frankly, for John Deere and Subaru. I've been in the Subaru plant a while ago, tremendously impressed. But this is not, the businesses that are typically on the podium when I'm on this message are folks from solid waste management folks, municipalities, and brand owners. Coke, Pepsi, Nestle's Water, those kind of folks. And we have a very robust, probably kind of like the Republican primary debates. There's 5 or 6 of us on, and none of us quite have the same view. And we're trying to work that out right now. So from a